you ever wondered when the very first humans walked the earth? Not just people who kind of looked like us, but real humans, creatures who could think, communicate, and shape the world around them? Imagine looking back through time, millions of years, trying to find that exact moment when we began. Today we're going to uncover that mystery together, and by the end of this video, you'll know not only when humans appeared, but also how our story fits into the bigger history of life on this planet. The story of humanity is one of the most fascinating tales ever told, but it's not an easy one. It doesn't begin with cities, with fire, or even with tools. It begins millions of years ago, with small ape-like creatures in Africa. Over time, those creatures slowly evolved, changing generation after generation, until, finally, something new appeared. Something that wasn't just another animal, but something we recognize as us. So, let's take this journey together. We'll trace the path from our earliest ancestors, through the long process of evolution, to the very first humans. Along the way, we'll meet our ancient relatives, discover what made us different, and finally answer that big question. When did the first humans appear? To understand when humans appeared, we first need to look at the bigger timeline of life on Earth. Life has been around for about 3.5 billion years. For most of that time, life was tiny. Single-celled organisms, bacteria, and simple creatures. Dinosaurs came and went long before humans were even close to existing. So where do we fit in? Our story begins much later, around 6 to 7 million years ago, when our evolutionary line split from that of chimpanzees. That's right, chimpanzees are our closest living relatives. We share almost 98 to 99% of our DNA with them. But at some point, our ancestors took a different path. Around 6 million years ago, in Africa, there were ape-like species that looked a little like chimps but had one important difference. They started walking on two legs. This ability is called bipedalism, and it was the first major step toward becoming human. Walking upright freed our hands. It meant we could carry things, use tools, and eventually do much more. One of the earliest known ancestors in this journey was Australopithecus. You may have heard of the famous fossil called Lucy. Lucy lived about 3.2 million years ago. She wasn't human yet, but she had a mix of traits. She could climb trees, but she also walked upright. Think of her as one of the early bridge species that slowly led the way toward humans. So, when do we see the first real humans? Scientists usually define humans as members of the genus Homo, and the first species in this group was Homo habilis, which appeared about 2.5 million years ago. Homo habilis means handyman, because these early humans were some of the first to make and use stone tools. They weren't like us yet. They had smaller brains and more ape-like features, but they marked a turning point. From here, humans began to look and act more like we do today. A little later came Homo erectus, about 2 million years ago. Now this species was a game changer. Homo erectus had a much larger brain, could control fire, and was one of the first species to leave Africa and spread across Asia and Europe. They lived for almost 2 million years, making them one of the most successful human species ever. But the question remains, when did we, modern humans, appear? Modern humans belong to the species Homo sapiens, and according to fossil evidence, our species first appeared in Africa around 300,000 years ago. That's incredibly recent if you think about it. If you compressed Earth's history into a single year, humans would only appear in the very last few minutes of December 31st. That's how short our story is compared to the age of the planet. These early Homo sapiens already looked very much like us. They had larger brains than their ancestors, they made more advanced tools, created art, and began forming communities. They could speak complex languages and pass down knowledge through generations. But here's something fascinating. When Homo sapiens appeared, we weren't alone. The world was home to several human-like species. There were the famous Neanderthals in Europe and Western Asia, Denisovans in parts of Asia, and even smaller species like Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the hobbits, who lived on islands in Indonesia. For thousands of years, our ancestors shared the planet with these cousins. Sometimes they competed with them, but evidence also shows that they interbred. In fact, Many people alive today still carry small amounts of Neanderthal DNA in their genes. Eventually, though, Homo sapiens became the dominant species. By about 40,000 years ago, the Neanderthals had disappeared. The other human relatives also faded away, leaving us as the only surviving humans. Why did our species survive when others didn't? Scientists believe it came down to a mix of intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. Homo sapiens developed better tools, built stronger social bonds, and created art and symbols that allowed for deeper communication. We could adapt to different environments, from the icy tundras to the hot deserts. And most importantly, we could imagine and plan for the future. This ability to think abstractly, to tell stories, to believe in shared ideas, gave us an edge that no other species had. Around 70,000 years ago, humans began leaving Africa in large groups. They spread across the Middle East, into Asia, Europe, and eventually into the Americas and Australia. This migration changed everything. Humans learned to survive in all kinds of climates, from freezing ice ages to tropical jungles. By 10,000 years ago, humans had spread to almost every corner of the globe, and it was only then that we began building the first civilizations. So, when did the first humans appear? If we define human as our species, Homo sapiens, then the answer is about 300,000 years ago in Africa. But if we look at the broader picture, the journey began millions of years earlier, with small ape-like creatures who first walked upright. Each step, walking on two legs, making tools, controlling fire, building communities, brought us closer to who we are today. And here's something to think about. Compared to the age of Earth, our story has just begun. We are incredibly new. And yet, in such a short time, humans have transformed the planet in ways no other species ever has. So the next time you wonder about our place in the universe, remember this. Our journey is both ancient and brand new. The first humans appeared hundreds of thousands of years ago, but the story of humanity is still being written, every single day, by us. If you enjoyed this journey through time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because there's so much more about our past, our future, and the mysteries of our universe waiting to be explored. And now, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the most fascinating part of the human story? Let me know in the comments below.